Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Good, I hope. So, if you've been following my Twitter for the last couple weeks, you know that I'm very excited for General Grievous in Fortnite. In fact, he's dropping as a secret skin this Friday. And this is possibly... You know what? No, not possibly. This character 100% rivals Doctor Doom is my all-time favorite collab skin in the game. I'm not joking. It's actually insane just how much I love General Grievous. Like, I've mentioned that I like Star Wars, maybe twice on the channel, and despite that, he rivals Doctor Doom, my all-time favorite villain, for the spot of my favorite collab skin. Like, Grievous is he's just that guy, you know? Now, with all that being said, my question is, why is he here? I mean, I'm not asking why is he a skin, but more so, why is he here lore-wise? Because he's kind of just, in the middle of nowhere. There are some clones who are relatively nearby, but other than that, he's just kind of chilling on the island looking for lightsabers. He hasn't really done anything to help either the Empire or the Rebellion. And that had me thinking, which side is he on here anyway? Which of the two warring factions would he align himself with more here? They could just hand wave it and say, oh, he's a villain, so he'd align himself with the bad guys, blah blah blah. But one, that's a very lame way of reasoning it, and two, Grievous is a bit more complicated than that. So I think it's worth looking into a little bit more. Now, before I actually start talking about it, yes, I am aware that I am definitely looking too deeply into the lore of a Fortnite season. That is, essentially just a month-long Star Wars ad. But let me dream here for a couple minutes, okay? Okay, cool. Also, if it's not obvious, this video is going to be a bit more unhinged and, let's say, less scripted than usual. I'm doing a lot more improv this time around. So, expect a lot more rambling than the average video. But because I wanted an excuse to fanboy about my favorite Star Wars character, and he's coming to Fortnite, like I said, now feels like a good a time as any, so, let's get started. But, actually not yet. Because before we begin, I'd like to do a small plug. If you're planning on picking up anything in the Fortnite item shop in the near future, please consider using creator code Yerocmai as your supporter creator code. I'd greatly appreciate it. Anyway, on to the video. So, before we go over which side I think he'd join, let's quickly recap his origin for those of you who don't know. And I'll only be going over the bare basics here, so if you're actually interested in Grievous's origin, I highly recommend doing your own research. Or if it's something you guys would like to see, I could do an entire Euro Yaps episode dedicated to me just talking about him as a character. Now, before you all say it, I also want to get something else out of the way. Yes, I am taking a good chunk of Grievous's origin from Legends for this video. My reasoning is this. 1, because his origin there is cool AF. 2, because as far as I know, and I could be wrong here, correct me if I am, but there isn't really anything in canon right now that contradicts this origin, aside from him now willingly taking on the cybernetic enhancements. But even then, my personal interpretation or headcanon of that is that he was willing to because Dooku made him. In Legends, we already know that he had his mind altered by the Geonosians, so who's to say that they didn't also alter his memory a bit so that it made it look like he was actually, willing to have these cybernetics and not just forced upon him. That, and I'm pretty sure Grievous himself said that he was willing to take the cybernetics, and I don't exactly think he's a reliable narrator, considering, well, he's not the most stable individual. Anyway, so, before Grievous was, Grievous, he was a Kaleesh warrior by the name of Qaimon Jai Shalal. And the Kaleesh are a very warlike species, for those who don't know, where war is kind of just an essential part of their life. He fought in something that was called the Huck War, where a neighboring species invaded Kaleesh for territory, for their people. You guys get the idea. Qaimon was an insanely, and I mean insanely talented marksman. When it came to his sniper rifle, he was basically a god among men. In fact, he was hailed as just that by his people. He was considered a demigod to them. Anyway, he eventually met someone by the name of Rondaru Liege Kumar. I don't think I've actually, said the real names out loud before, so I probably completely mispronounced that, but, that doesn't matter right now. Anyway, she was a fellow warrior who he may or may not have fallen in love with, but they were both basically considered this duo of demigods who would absolutely just slaughter the Huck. Anyway, speeding things up a bit quick, some things happened. She basically dies in the ocean while fighting some Huck. Qui-Gon is very sad about that, obviously, so he goes to pray to his god so he can see her one last time. They completely ignore him. He falls into a depressive state, and he also ends up with 10 wives and 30 children, but that's besides the point. I just wanted to mention that really quick. But even then, that didn't do much for him. So he accepts that it is his destiny to grieve her for as long as he lived. And I'm just going to read off this excerpt from one of the wikis here because it speaks for itself. Sheol cast off his old identity, adopting a name more appropriate to being destined to grieve forever, and even more terribly, who was determined that he would not do so alone. He would be Grievous, as well as heartbroken, for the rest of his life. Anyway, now to speedrun the rest of his origin. He basically becomes Space Kratos, pushes the Huck out of his world, and then begins taking over the worlds that the Huck have conquered. But the Huck are sore losers, and then they go and cry to the Republic for help. And the Republic, being the Republic, sends some Jedi to push Grievous back to Kali. So he now hates the Jedi for essentially helping his enemy that was taking his people as slaves, to get back their power. Anyway, the Banking Clan offers some help in exchange for Grievous being a debt collector. He begrudgingly accepts, blah blah blah. The Huck eventually come back to Kali though, and desecrate burial tombs and such. Grievous is obviously pretty mad about this, and he returns home abandoning his post. And the Banking Clan guy, whose name I do not remember as of saying this, he does not like this, and thus he conspires with Dooku to permanently get Grievous onto their side. Blah blah blah, they put a bomb on Grievous' ship, the ship crashes, and boom, he's turned into the aura farming murder hobo that we all love. Now, the rest of the story is pretty well known. He fights in the Clone Wars, gets killed by Obi-Wan, and overall all he amounts to is basically just being a pawn and the fall guy for Sidious's plan. So, now on to the actual topic of the video. And honestly, I kind of forgot I was supposed to be talking about Fortnite here, I'm not gonna lie. Grievous is that guy, I just love talking about him. Anyway, so, Fortnite Galactic Battle is a very interesting set piece because it's the big three eras of Star Wars, all in one singular place at the same time. Now, it's interesting because while they are technically different factions, they're more so just two sides. Like, the First Order is basically just a weaker subdivision of the Empire in this context, and the Resistance and the Rebellion are, well, they're basically just the same thing at different points in time. And that leaves the Republic, which I personally believe would be aligned with the Empire. At least the Grand Army of the Republic would be, because even if they're pulled in from during the Clone Wars, I think Emperor Palpatine would just activate Order 66 and have the clones turn on the Jedi and Rebels. So it makes more sense that they would just be with the Empire from the start. Now, back to Grievous though. Knowing what we know about him, you'd think he'd side with the Empire due to them not being Jedi, right? Well, that's what I thought at first, but remember what we talked about earlier. Grievous was used by Sidious, and to him, all that Grievous amounted to was just being another pawn in a long list of chess pieces sacrificed to get Palpatine into power. And Grievous, seeing that Sidious turned out to be the Chancellor of the Republic, and correct me if I'm wrong here if there's something in canon, but he never knew that Darth Sidious was Chancellor Palpatine. So, him finding out that, I don't think he'd take that news all too well. So, while I don't think he'd necessarily align himself with the Jedi, or even end his feud with them, I find it much harder to believe that Grievous would side with the Empire, more so if he finds out what happens to him on the main timeline. And since, as far as I can tell, there aren't any separatist ships in orbit around the island, and there are definitely no battle droids on the map, yet hopefully I'm wrong. He'd need some form of army if he actually wanted to do anything against Sidious, and thus, that leaves the Rebellion. So, the answer to the topic? I could see Grievous very begrudgingly joining the Rebellion to help fight against Sidious. Hell, he might even see Vader as a former Jedi, and that might be more than enough for him to justify going against the Empire, even if it is more of a, see, I hate you guys a lot, but I hate that guy specifically way more right now, type of deal with the Rebellion. But the second that Sidious is actually defeated, he'd be back on his crusade against the Jedi. Oh, and one more thing. I've got one more piece of evidence to justify my answer here, and it's actually in-game, so humor me here. If you were to land at the First Order base, what happens? Phasma and the Stormtroopers almost immediately light you up, and if you land at Vader's POI, the same thing happens. But if you land at Grievous's location, he doesn't try to kill you. In fact, you could chat with him. In fact, if you bring him a lightsaber for his collection, he'll even train you and give you a mythic sniper as a callback to his Kaleesh warrior days. And side note, I got this reference almost immediately, and it made me so happy. Like, I was mid-match while in a call with a friend, and I basically did the audio equivalent of this. Now, that being said though, him joining the rebellion is really only if he has no other option available. Like, if we end up getting some battle droids or any sign of the separatists in game, then I couldn't see him joining either faction. Instead, he and the separatists would become a third party in the war. Like I said, he really hates Jedi, so if he has any alternative where he can go against both, even if it's less likely, I can see him taking that immediately. And then on the other end of things, if we were to get Dooku in game, I could see that being a case where he'd side with the Empire, especially if Dooku was aligned with the Empire. Because assuming Dooku doesn't know about Sidious also betraying him in the main timeline, if he's there to command Grievous to do something, I could see it being just Jedi killing business as usual for Grievous. He's made it clear that politics aren't something he typically cares about, so if an existing ally is there to point Grievous in the direction of an enemy, I couldn't see him caring enough about the war to go out on his own. But that's also assuming Dooku wouldn't have his own plan to go against Palpatine here. But if we consider every little thing like that, we'd be here all day. But yeah, that's my answer. Realistically, he's probably just going to be on the villain side. Like I said, this season probably won't have anything more than the bare basics when it comes to lore and story, so I'm not expecting much. That being said though, there is a Qui-Gon-themed loading screen in the game, so who knows, maybe we'll get some form of like actual character for Grievous here. Who knows? Especially maybe during the live event. Side note, fun fact, this is my second time recording this video, because while I was editing, I must have accidentally deleted the actual file, like all the recording, because they just vanished from the project, and I was looking for them for like a solid hour. So if my throat sounds a little bit more raspy and tired than usual, that's why, and I apologize. That being said, I am still very enthusiastic about Grievous as a character, and I really hope that that still comes through with this, so yeah, just know I love Grievous. Like, honestly, this video was definitely just an excuse for me to fanboy about him. Like I said, Grievous is my boy, and I love talking about him. Honestly though, writing this video made me realize I kind of want to do more like fanboy discussion videos. Like, stuff kind of like Postra's Ultron video here. I've been wanting to dabble in like an analysis or essay video, so maybe I'll do that. Like, I've got a lot to say when it comes to certain characters and how they're written. So, like I said, maybe that'll be a fun thing to do sometime. Anyway, if you're looking to support the channel, you can become a true supporter through the membership. Members get exclusive content such as loyalty badges, super cool emotes, early access to new videos, along with a shout out at the end of every video, and other various perks. Oh, and if you play Fortnite and would like to support me through that, make sure to use code Yerocmai in the Fortnite item shop. We've got a lot of cool things coming to the game in the future, so I'd greatly appreciate the support there. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, Fortnite at Bosker Cat Bane next, and my life is yours.